Headphone jack. For nearly a decade, the 3.5mm headphone jack was one of the simplest and most dependable parts of the iPhone. It allowed users to connect wired headphones, external speakers, car audio systems, microphones, and countless accessories without thinking twice. There was no pairing process, no charging, and no concern about battery life. You plugged in, and it worked. That changed in 2016 when Apple introduced the iPhone 7 and removed the headphone jack entirely. The company described it as a move toward a wireless future and, at the same event, introduced AirPods as the next step in personal audio. It was a decision that immediately divided people. Some saw it as innovation, while others saw it as removing something that still worked perfectly. Even years later, the disappearance of the headphone jack remains one of the most talked about decisions in iPhone history because it changed not just the phone, but how millions of people listen to music every day. Physical home button. For early iPhone users, the home button was more than just a button. It was the center of the entire experience. No matter where you were in the system, one press brought you back home. A double press opened multitasking. A long press activated Siri. It became something users relied on so often that many could find it without even looking. From the original iPhone in 2007 all the way through several generations, the home button stayed almost untouched, becoming one of the most recognizable parts of the device. Then in 2017, Apple introduced the iPhone X and removed it completely. In its place came swipe gestures and a fully edge-to-edge display. For long-time users, it felt strange at first, almost as if the phone was missing something important. But over time, gesture navigation became second nature. The removal of the home button marked the end of one era and the beginning of a completely different way of using an iPhone. Touch ID on flagship models. When Touch ID arrived on the iPhone 5S in 2013, it felt futuristic. Instead of typing in a passcode every time you unlocked your phone, you simply placed your finger on the home button, and within seconds the device recognized you. It quickly became one of the most appreciated features on the iPhone because it made security feel effortless. Touch ID also expanded into app authentication, mobile payments, and password verification, becoming part of daily life without most users even noticing. But with the arrival of the iPhone X, Apple introduced Face ID and slowly moved away from fingerprint recognition on flagship models. Facial recognition brought its own advantages, especially with hands-free unlocking, but not everyone welcomed the change. Some preferred Touch ID for its speed, reliability, and convenience in situations where looking at the phone was difficult. Its removal wasn't just a hardware change. It changed how users thought about privacy, security, and convenience. 3D Touch. When Apple introduced 3D Touch with the iPhone 6s in 2015, it was unlike anything most smartphone users had seen before. The display could detect not just where you touched, but how hard you pressed. A light press could preview an email, a harder press could open it fully. App icons revealed hidden shortcuts, photos could be previewed instantly, and navigation through the system became faster for those who learned how to use it. It felt advanced, almost like discovering hidden layers inside the interface. But despite the technology behind it, many users never fully understood what it could do. Some didn't even realize their phone had the feature. Over time, Apple noticed that adoption was lower than expected. By 2019, 3D Touch was quietly removed and replaced by haptic touch, which achieved similar results using long presses instead of pressure sensitivity. The change made the hardware simpler, but it also ended one of the most ambitious interaction experiments Apple ever built into the iPhone. Charging brick. Buying a new iPhone once meant opening the box and finding everything needed to power the device from day one. Alongside the phone sat a charging cable and a wall adapter, neatly arranged and ready to use. That changed in 2020 with the iPhone 12, when Apple removed the charging brick from the box entirely. The company explained that many users already own chargers and that reducing accessories would help the environment by lowering electronic waste and shrinking packaging. Smaller boxes also meant more units could be shipped at once, reducing transportation emissions. On paper, the decision made sense. But in practice, it created frustration for some buyers, especially those upgrading from older devices with incompatible chargers or first-time iPhone owners who expected everything to be included. It was a small box change that sparked a surprisingly large conversation about convenience, sustainability, and what customers should expect from a premium product. EarPods in the box. For many years, opening a new iPhone also meant finding a pair of Apple EarPods inside. Their white cables and unique shape became instantly recognizable around the world. You could spot them on buses, in classrooms, at airports, and on city streets. They weren't just accessories. For many people, they were their first decent pair of earphones. Apple included them with iPhones for years, making them part of the unboxing experience. But in 2020, alongside the removal of the charging brick, Apple also removed EarPods from the box. The company pointed to environmental reasons and the growing popularity of wireless audio products like AirPods. By then, many users had already made the shift to Bluetooth listening, but for others, the disappearance of wired earphones meant one more accessory they might need to buy separately. It marked another step away from traditional wired convenience. SIM card tray in some models. For decades, physical SIM cards were a normal part of owning a mobile phone. Changing networks meant removing a tiny card, swapping it into another device, and being connected again within minutes. The iPhone followed that system for years. But with newer models in certain regions, Apple removed the physical SIM tray entirely and moved to eSIM technology. Instead of inserting a card, users now activate mobile service digitally through software. The change frees up internal space, improves water resistance, and removes another physical opening from the phone's design. In many ways, it feels like a natural step toward a fully digital future. But it also changes habits people have followed for years. Travelers, repair technicians, and users who frequently switch devices sometimes miss the simplicity of physically moving a SIM card. It's one of those changes that feels invisible until the moment you need it. Mute switch. Since the original iPhone in 2007, the mute switch had been one of its most practical hardware features. Located on the side of the device, it allowed users to silence calls and notifications instantly without unlocking the phone or opening settings. In meetings, classrooms, churches, cinemas, and countless everyday situations, that tiny switch saved people from awkward moments. Over time, it became part of the iPhone's identity. Then Apple introduced the action button on newer premium models, replacing the classic switch with something more flexible. The new button can still mute the phone, but it can also launch the camera, turn on the flashlight, record voice notes, or activate custom shortcuts. It adds functionality, but it also marks the end of a feature that had remained almost unchanged for over 15 years. For long-time users, losing the mute switch felt like saying goodbye to an old habit. Lightning port. In 2012, Apple replaced its large 30-pin connector with the much smaller Lightning port. At the time, it felt like a huge improvement. It was compact, reversible, and far easier to use. You no longer had to flip the cable around to find the correct side. Over the years, Lightning became part of the iPhone ecosystem, powering chargers, docks, microphones, game controllers, car systems, storage devices, and thousands of third-party accessories. Entire businesses built products around it. For more than a decade, it remained one of Apple's most recognizable connectors. But as the technology world gradually moved toward USB-C, pressure for a universal charging standard continued to grow. Eventually, Apple made the transition. The removal of Lightning wasn't just about charging. It represented the end of an entire generation of accessories, habits, and design choices that defined the modern iPhone. Inbox extras. Early iPhone packaging was designed to feel like opening something special. Alongside the phone, users often found small extras that added to the premium experience. There were Apple stickers, neatly folded documentation, adapters, accessories, and carefully arranged components that made every unboxing feel deliberate. The presentation became part of the product itself. People even uploaded unboxing videos just to capture that experience. But over time, Apple began simplifying what came inside. Boxes became thinner, accessories became fewer, printed materials became smaller, and unnecessary extras slowly disappeared. Some of those changes were practical, others were environmental, and some reflected changing consumer habits. But for long-time users who remember opening their first iPhone, the modern box feels very different. Cleaner, simpler, and more efficient, but also a little less personal than it once did.